What's up, gang? Coach Christine here. And today I want to talk about something that someone brought up in my coaching group this week in 6 Weeks to Strong, as well as in my Empowered group on Facebook. So this is all about fear today. And if you've ever found yourself being held back to do anything really because of fear, this video is for you. And the reason why I care so much about this topic is because I had so many fears, specifically around health, fitness, and lifestyle change. And it took me a really long time to wrap my head around what was going on, why this was happening, why I was being held back by fear. So today, I hope that I can help you start to understand a little bit about why we have fear and where that comes from, and how you can start to do some little practices to guide yourself in the direction of the things that you want to accomplish, even if you feel that twinge of fear or anxiety or panic or anything, whatever it may be, that's holding you back. And this question in my Empowered group was specifically about fear of failure. And I will touch on that as well. But I think this is kind of a broad brush about fear, and you can apply these to fear of failure, fear of whatever it may be that's holding you back. Maybe you don't even realize yet that it is fear. So take a listen, tell me your thoughts. I'd love to hear more from you. So first, let's talk about why we have fear. Fear is one of our most primal instincts. We're born with it. So there's a genetic component, and it's also something that can be learned. So I like to think about it in two ways, the learning component piece of it. So you could think of yourself as a child. We've all been a child, right? And you know, or maybe you don't know yet, let's put yourself in that place where you don't know yet, the stove is hot, right? The stove is hot. Mom's cooking on the stove. Stove is hot. In my house, we have a wood burning fireplace. You can use that analogy as well. The fireplace is hot, right? And perhaps you learned the fireplace was hot because your mom told you over and over and over again, or your dad told you over and over and over again, the fireplace is hot. Don't touch it. Or your big brother or big sister or your aunt, or whoever it was, your grandma. Stove is hot. Don't touch it. The stove is hot. The stove is hot. The stove is hot. Now, at this point, you might not even have an understanding of what that means, because maybe if you can put yourself way back to childhood, maybe you've never experienced hot yet, right? But you know the stove is hot because your grandma told you so. So you're going to stay away from it. There's other evidence that starts to compile. The stove is hot because she cooks food on it. And you can tell that in order to cook food, it must be hot. Or maybe you see smoke coming off of it, or maybe you feel the heat radiating off of it. So these are all ways we start to learn. Now, do we necessarily make the connection between that will burn me? Not necessarily right away. Perhaps you do. Perhaps that's hardwired in your brain. So there's another way that we can learn, and that's to actually experience it, right? So maybe you were playing in the living room and you weren't paying attention, and all of a sudden you fell over and you touched the stove briefly, hopefully. And all of a sudden you were burnt by it. Now it takes our brains a couple of seconds to kind of register, like, what's happening? Ouch, it's hot. Okay, now I know. Now I have fear. So I have fear because I was told to have fear. It's a really interesting component of it. I have fear because I was told to have fear, or I have fear because I experienced the thing firsthand. I didn't die, but it wasn't pleasant, and I don't want to experience that again. So fear, being one of our most primal instincts, is there to keep us safe. It's there because in our most basic form, our brains want to keep us safe. They want us to not die, but they also don't want us to be injured. They don't want us to come into any situation where we might perhaps put ourselves in jeopardy, so that survival is no longer an option. And on top of that, reproduction, because ultimately that's what that part of the brain wants us to do. It wants us to survive and thrive and carry on the line, right? So we know that fear happens in this way, but that makes sense, right? Fear of getting burning ourselves makes sense. Absolutely. But what about other fears that almost feel like they don't make sense? What about fear of going to the gym? What about fear of trying a new exercise? What about fear of eating broccoli? Now that sounds crazy, but you might not realize that there is a fear associated with some of these lifestyle and behavior, especially around health, nutrition, and wellness. These potentially may be fears that are holding you back. Let's talk about the broccoli one, because I think sometimes that connection can be harder for folks to make. Maybe you don't recognize yet that there's actually a fear component to changing your nutrition. There could be a lot of things wound up in this. Fear of judgment from others, fear of not liking the foods, fear that you have to give up taste. Like if you're a foodie, you consider yourself a foodie, if you have a fear that you have to give up foods that you enjoy, fear that you will have to be restricted, fear that you can never have your favorite foods again. There's so many fears that can be wrapped up in nutritional change. So maybe some light bulbs are going off for you in this moment. Fear of, one of the things that I oftentimes ask my clients to do is do a food journal. And I've had people come back to me and say, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the person who's taking pictures of their food at the table. Oftentimes there's a lot more behind that. Why? I don't want other people to judge me. I don't want to appear as this type of person. I don't want to appear self-absorbed. There could be a lot of things going on there. And those are all fears. Are they real? Not necessarily. So we need to get to the reality piece of this. And when we have emotion involved, which fear is an emotion, it can be really hard for us to separate the emotional component with the reality and the rational component. So there is a behavioral model or analogy that's called the rider and the elephant. So let me tell you about the rider and the elephant. This is a way to think about your emotional brain and your rational brain. So our emotional brain is our elephant. So imagine a big, beautiful, majestic elephant. And you can imagine a human, if you want it to be yourself, cool, as the rider. So our emotional brain is the elephant. The rider is our rational brain. And our rational brain is trying to tell, so our rider is trying to tell our elephant where to go. So imagine that your goal is to eat more healthfully, whatever that means to you. Maybe that means eating more greens, okay? And you're like, all right, my goal is to eat more greens and my goal is over there. I'm on my elephant. I need to get my elephant to eating more greens, but the elephant is ruled by emotion and there's a lot of fear. So all those fears start to creep in. People may judge me. My family doesn't eat foods like that. There's negative self-talk, all of those fears. The elephant is not going to move because of these fears, no matter how hard the rider kicks him, jumps up and down, whatever he does, yells at him, which doesn't help. I think it makes the elephant not want to move even more emotionally. So we need to help our elephant or our emotional brain get past all these fears and feel comfortable to push outside of its comfort zone. How do we do that? Our elephant needs to know the way. And our elephant needs to have the obstacles cleared. That's how we're going to do it. So let's go back to our eating more veggies analogy. So my rider is going to help my elephant, my emotional brain is going to be helped by my rational brain to go, okay, emotional brain, here's the path we have to take, right? I need to, right now, I'm going to make a plan. So right now I'm eating 1 green vegetable a day. I'm going to make it really simple and we're going to try for 2 a day. And the elephant starts to go, that's not too bad. I might be able to do that. You're not asking me to only eat all green vegetables. You're not even asking me to take away my indulgences. Those were some of my fears. I can still have ice cream when I want it, but I'm just gonna eat one more green vegetable a day. That's not too bad. All right, so now we've established the path and we've even eliminated some of the obstacles with a good plan, which are, I'm gonna keep it small, realistic, attainable. What could be some other obstacles that could pop up along the way? Well, when I go to my mom's house, they never eat any vegetables. Let's make a plan to overcome that obstacle. I'm going to bring it with me, or I'm going to tell my mom that I need to have a green vegetable in this meal. So having a path or a plan and examining some of the obstacles that may come up and getting to that and coming up with solutions is going to help your elephant or your rational brain be much more excited about moving towards that goal and doing the thing. I like to play a little game when I'm thinking about some of the challenges that I'm held back by with fear specifically. So we can think about fear of going to the gym. What's my path and what are my obstacles? Fear of failure. Again, whatever you're afraid of failing at. I'm afraid of looking silly when I try a new exercise in the gym. Okay, what is it? What's the plan, the path? And what are some of the obstacles? How can I overcome that? Well, I could get some help, right? I could hire a coach. I could hire a personal trainer. I could talk to a friend who knows what they're doing. I could watch some YouTube videos. There's so many solutions. Let's figure out the one that works for us. So fear of success could be another one. This is another really deep one. Like, oh my God, what if I actually am able to do that? What are the implications of that? So spending just a little bit of time playing this game, I call it, what's the worst possible thing that can happen? All right, so I'm gonna use an example from one of my coaching clients in my group today. She said, I've always thought about joining some recreational sports leagues and that it would be fun, but some of the fears and things that had held me back from doing that is the time commitment, that I won't be as good as I want to be, that I won't have the skill that I had when I played formally, and that people will judge me, and so on and so forth. So let's attack the first two, right? Time commitment. Okay, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? The worst possible thing that could happen is I sign up for this sports team and I never make it. All right, how am I going to help myself overcome that fear? My rational brain now is going to step in and say, here is some of the rational things that are going to happen if that happens. That's the worst case scenarios. I just never make it. Worst thing that can happen is I'm out, whatever, maybe it's $100 to join the sports league. Not too bad, right? Maybe some of my friends are mad at me, but probably not, honestly, because we're all adults at this point and people understand. Maybe I let myself down and that hurts, right? So there's 3 possible worst case scenario outcomes. Is it worth not doing the thing to lose $100? To me, no, because the flip side of that is I'm probably not going to miss every single game. Let's be real. And even if I make it to 1, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to get exercise. I'm going to get to see my friends. The benefits outweigh the possible worst case scenario. 2, maybe I have some of my time commitments are being taken up, right? I have to prioritize. So is it really that bad if I make it to half the games? No, absolutely not. Again, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to see my friends. I'm going to get some exercise. And I'm much more likely to sign up or show up because I signed up for the thing, because I know that about myself. And other people are holding me accountable. I'm not going to be as good as I want to be. Does that really matter? Here comes the rational brain stepping in. Does that really matter? Is anyone really judging me? What are the stories I'm telling myself? Am I making that up? Probably. Does anybody else really care how I perform in adult league softball? Probably not. I'm being really hard on myself. Again, the pros of doing the thing are going to outweigh even the worst case possible scenario in this scenario. Redundancy there. So that is an example of playing the what's the worst possible outcome game and helping your writer move your elephant along the path. You can do this with all of your fears. You can go through and go, what am I afraid of? What is the worst possible thing that can happen? Sometimes it's like I could die, but then your rational brain is going to step in and go, is that really going to happen? And what are the cons and pros here? The cons, yeah, maybe I can use my obstacle course race as an example. Yeah, maybe I could die. When I sign the liability waiver, it says you can die on there. Am I going to die? Well, evidence from the past shows I did not die. And if I train and I work towards those goals and I prepare for it, I'm even more less likely to die. I mean, the chances are like, who knows, maybe 1%. Do the positive outcomes outweigh the negative, especially when the percentage of that happening is so low? Absolutely. The training benefits, the friends I'm going to make, the fun I'm going to have. I get to be outside. I love it. I love the whole experience. Why am I letting that little irrational fear hold me back? All right, I want to hear from you. What are some of your fears? How can you play this little game with yourself and remind your emotional brain that fear is there to keep us alive and keep us safe, but it can also hold us back from making change and moving towards our goals?